We start this morning with primary election results, including a major upset in Florida. A Democratic socialist is projected to win her primary for U.S. Senate. State Representative Angie Nixon defeated National Security Council whistleblower Alex Vindman, and this was despite being outraised 16-1. She told supporters last night they've sent a shockwave to the Washington, D.C. establishment.
They told us to get in line, but we knew better. They told us to step aside, but we knew better.
Nixon is set to face off against incumbent Ashley Moody, a Republican, in November. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis appointed Moody to fill Secretary of State Marco Rubio's Senate seat last year. And in the state's governor's race, Republican Congressman Byron Donalds and Democrat David Jolly will go head-to-head this fall after their projected primary wins.
Tonight, we put aside our differences. Tonight, we are one united Republican Party.
To my Democratic friends, thank you for this opportunity. The values that hold us together are big enough to build a coalition tonight to win the governorship in November.
And now turning to the fight for a Senate seat out of Alaska, Republican incumbent Dan Sullivan and former Democratic Congresswoman Mary Peltola are projected to advance to the general. Now, it remains too early to call which two other candidates they'll be competing against under the state's top four primary format. And in the Senate race in Wyoming, Trump-endorsed Congresswoman Harriet Hageman is projected to win the Republican nomination. That seat currently belongs to outgoing GOP Senator Cynthia Lummis, and it's highly unlikely a Democrat will flip it. But take a look at this. In the state's race for governor, CBS News projects State Senator Eric Barlow will be at the top of the Republican ticket in the fall. He secured the party's nomination over Trump-endorsed candidate Megan Degenfelder. Now, we've got team coverage for you on all of this morning. CBS News political director Fin Gómez is in our Washington bureau. But let's begin with CBS News congressional correspondent Nikole Killion. She is in West Palm Beach, Florida for us this Monday. Nikole, good morning. So Democratic Socialist Angie Nixon prevailed in her primary, but other progressives running in Florida's 20th and 25th district did not. So what should we make of these results? What do you make?
Well, keep in mind, these are two different candidates in two completely different races. And so while they may share the Democratic Socialist label, no two races are the same. And so I think that's what's at play here. Look, in terms of Angie Nixon, she was running for a statewide office versus Oliver Larkin, who was running in a congressional district. But in terms of this Senate race, of course, Angie Nixon is a well-known commodity in terms of state politics because she is a state representative. She is from Florida. She is based in Jacksonville. She was a community organizer there and really was somebody who kind of took it to Governor Ron DeSantis. She described herself as a fighter. So some of those dynamics may have been at play here. There were also some controversies with respect to her opponent, Alexander Vindman. While he is someone certainly who is very decorated in terms of being a combat veteran, he also was that whistleblower who was a key witness during President Trump's first impeachment. At the same time, he had some missteps, most notably his wife criticized Angie Nixon on social media and got a lot of blowback from that. So there were a couple of dynamics at play in this race, but very significant considering that Vindman outraised Angie Nixon by a wide margin. She had more of a grassroots operation, and obviously she has taken some controversial positions with respect to the issue of Israel, for instance. So it will be interesting to see how she pivots to the general election. But certainly this was one that caught a lot of folks here in the state off guard.
And another notable primary, Nikole, the defeat of embattled Congressman Corey Mills. To what extent do we think this may be because of the House ethics investigation into serious allegations against him?
Well, it certainly was a cloud that was hanging over his head, even though he told me time and again that, he did nothing wrong. He had no charges filed against him. But look, he is facing very serious allegations of sexual and financial misconduct. As you mentioned, this House ethics investigation is underway. But I think what is significant about this particular race is that in this instance, it is the voters who are deciding here. We have seen other lawmakers who have come under fire, under scrutiny for various allegations. Most recently this week, Democrat Jimmy Gómez. But you look at Eric Swalwell, there was a race just yesterday to replace him. He resigned, of course, following sexual assault allegations. So in all of these instances, we've seen lawmakers maybe make decisions about their own careers. But in this particular case, you have voters deciding here. Obviously, Mills defeated last night by Ryan Elijah, who's a local journalist in the area who had the backing of other House Republicans, including Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna.
All right, Nikole Killion in West Palm Beach, Florida for us, kicking off our hour. Nikole, thank you. Let's jump to CBS News political director Fin Gómez. He's in our Washington bureau. Fin, good morning. Let's talk about Alaska. Break down what's happening there, the fight for the Senate seat, among others.
Good morning, Errol. Look, I love Alaska. It's one of my favorite states, not just because of its beautiful natural beauty, but also because of its politics. It is fascinating. And I think last night, I think it just typifies how important this race is. It is such a crucial race, Errol, because whoever controls the Senate could run through Alaska. Republicans are defending the seat, but Democrats believe former Congresswoman Mary Peltola, a proven statewide candidate with a strong independent brand, gives them their best opportunity to flip this red state. Peltola and Republican Senator Dan Sullivan have both advanced to November. You just reported that. But with Peltola currently leading the overall primary vote. Now, that's not a head-to-head matchup exactly, Errol. Alaska puts every candidate on the same primary ballot, and the top four advance to the general election, and then voters using ranked choice voting in November. But Peltola's showing last night, and I spoke to some Democrats about this, they feel because it's such a strong showing, and it's an encouraging early sign for Democrats in what could be one of the most crucial Senate races of the year.
And what's your overall takeaway, Fin, when you look at all of the results together? Does either party seem to have strength? I mean, these are primaries anyway, but what's jumping out to you?
Look, do you have an arrow, Errol? Because I could talk a lot about this topic, but I think one of the things that stood out to me is I think there's been a lot reported and discussed about the president's endorsements this cycle. Last night, and I think overall, the overwhelming candidates that he backed, by our count, it's about at least 22, won or advanced, including Byron Donalds, of course, in Florida, Dan Sullivan in Alaska, but three of the Trump-backed candidates, including Corey Mills, Catalina Loff, and Megan Degenfelder, who lost Wyoming's gubernatorial primary to Eric Barlow, that follows losses, if you recall, by Trump-backed gubernatorial candidates in Georgia, Iowa, and Minnesota earlier this cycle, Errol. And I think the other takeaway, and we saw Nikole just talk about this, but I think that the energy on the Democratic left is real. But I think it's somewhat uneven. You saw Democratic Socialist Angie Nixon pull off that genuine upset over the better-funded Alex Finman in Florida Senate primary. But in Florida's 25th, you saw Jared Moskowitz defeat that DSA challenger. So again, those are two results pointing in different directions, and a reminder that despite the progressive wins this cycle, there is not one clear ideological trend you're seeing. It does remind me of the Tea Party movement of 2010, despite their momentum in the primaries of that cycle. They lost winnable elections during the general election, especially in the Senate, and that could be happening again here, especially if you take a look at last night's results in Florida. Errol.
All right, Fin Gómez in our DC bureau. Fin, thank you.